Hello, and welcome to Real Men Feel. This is Andy Grant, and if this is your first time joining us, thank you for tuning in. We are starting a little late because I have lots of exciting technical issues here in Blabland. Real Men Feel is all about encouraging men to allow for, express, and really experience all of their emotions. That's the basis of the program. We are live every Tuesday at 5 here on Blab, and then we are syndicated out through SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. You can follow us at realmenfeel.org on Twitter. You can track down show notes and past episodes at realmenfeel.org. And you can join us on Facebook on our group, which coincidentally is called Real Men Feel. With all that out of the way, let's get into today's show. With me, as always, is my friend and co-host, Appio Hunter.
Greetings.
How are you today, Appio?
Fantastic.
Good. Do you feel like we have the Blab gods on our side now? Is the energy right?
The energy has lined up. Everything is going good. Now it's no longer playing with the Blab beta. They figured out that it's a beta, so they're not being as mean anymore.
Yeah, we have to rename Blab Perpetual Beta, not just Beta.
Right. Yeah.
Reinforce that. But this program is not just for men. Certainly, you can be anyone to tune and enjoy us, and you can also be anyone to be a guest. Not to mean our next guest is just anyone, but she's. Here we go. What happens when we start late?
We get really silly.
Yeah. Our guest this week is psychic and medium Laura Emerald. Hi, Laura.
Hello, Andy and Appio, and everyone else who was so helpful while I was going through my technical troubles.
Good.
Thank you all.
Well, you've made it, so thank goodness for that. And let's.
And this is the first Blab, so
Yeah,
excited.
we can tell. It's all right.
Because we've all been through this too.
Yes. Yeah. There's no one that's been on Blab for very long that hasn't run into Blab not working for them in some way or another. But it's all good. You are here. And just to jump right in, when I first talked to you, like, what did you want to talk about when you come on? I think you brought up forgiveness, right?
I did bring it up because I had done a little forgiveness class on Learn It Live, which is another online kind of, it's like a virtual classroom. And it was really favorably received. I got a lot of positive comments about it. So when you mentioned this show, I don't know, that particular day, forgiveness just jumped in as something that we all sort of wrestle with and maybe might be interested in the topic. So
Cool.
Resonate with you.
So before we get into that, I mentioned that we've talked before. We know each other. Do you want to share the story of how we came to know each other?
Sure. With your permission, I can share that.
Yeah.
So I met Andy a couple of years ago he was teaching a class on how to improve your social media and email, social media, and just presence on the web for small businesses at a local wonderful place in Andover called Circles of Wisdom. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, God.
Okay.
This with the animals. Good Lord.
They're excited.
He's picking up on the energy.
I'm sorry. Anyways, I met Andy at that Circles of Wisdom, and about 9 months after taking that class, I'm a spirit medium. I was doing my morning yoga routine, and one of Andy's relatives came through to me to contact Andy and reach out to him right then because Andy needed to hear from this person in spirit right then. And I reached out to Andy and tried to say, I'm not really a crazy person reaching out to you out of the blue, even though I felt like it. And Andy got back to me right away, and I had offered, to have a session with him, which we did, and it was apparently divine timing. And Andy and I have kind of stayed in touch since. He did amazing Akashic record readings for me, so if any of you haven't had that with him, totally recommended it. It was life-changing.
Yeah, and I'll share more details because I teach lots of different classes, social media and ebooks, and Laura had said that she had been in one of my classes. You contacted me via email, said you were in a class, and I didn't recognize the name, and it's usually I'd have to see your face and like, oh, yeah, you sat in the back row, now I remember you. But she said that she had been contacted by my grandmother, and she had an important message for me. At the time, I was very depressed and was having suicidal thoughts for like the first time in a few years. My grandmother I have multiple grandmothers who have passed, but I knew the grandmother who was coming through, who she was and what she was showing up for, because her husband, my grandfather, did die by suicide. So I knew that's why she was trying to find me and get in touch. So when I got this message from Laura, I didn't doubt it. She's again, I'm not crazy. This isn't how I work. This isn't a scam, and you stressed that you would like ignore this message for a while because no, that's not how I work. I'm not going to contact someone and just give messages that come to me. But I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's see what's there. And it helped me get through that time for sure. And I have not someone that ever, I don't think I'd ever before that sought out a psychic medium. So it was just really cool. So thanks for that. And I'm sure there was some forgiveness in that message. I have to go back and look at my notes.
It really was. And the other funny thing is that Andy and I both have high-tech backgrounds. We sort of share that common, the high-tech software mindset, coming to these energy fields, from that, or with that background.
Cool. So thanks for that. And so when you wanted to talk forgiveness, is it because kind of like messages from the other side are about forgiveness often, or did it have anything to do with your work as a psychic and medium?
In the moment you asked me, we were sitting together at a networking event, you said, well, what kind of topics would you talk about? And I don't know, the psychic medium said, forgiveness is what came up as the top of my mind. So I guess as a medium, one of the things I have learned is to trust it, that maybe today your community would benefit from some discussion around forgiveness, as opposed to, I could always come back and not have the technical problems and talk about messages from beyond and cool psychic and mediumship stuff too, if you want. But anyways, I was guided though, in the moment that you asked me, I just saw forgiveness, and because I'd already put a training program together on it, and it got a lot of, people found it powerful, some of the techniques that came to me. So. Oh,
good. So it's not just that, I guess I was assuming that the majority of messages you receive for people are somehow related to forgiveness. So it's much more of a concrete program in how to forgive yourself and or others.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, in messages, actually a lot of stuff comes up about forgiveness in messages from loved ones on the other side. That, since you asked the question that way, that is a theme that has come up a lot. Particularly with people, there's a lot of people that go to spirit suddenly, abruptly, and loved ones don't make it to the hospital on time, or bigger issues than that are left wide open, like gaping holes in their hearts, and they come in for a reading, and parents are bringing up specific things that they did to them as children and asking for forgiveness. So yeah, as a medium, forgiveness is a theme that comes up a lot in readings, for sure. But yeah, this, it's interesting. So there's forgiveness when other people ask us to forgive them, and then there's forgiving ourselves and forgiving other people when they don't ask. And that's, I think, where the power of the topic comes up, because forgiveness is personal, and we can choose to walk down that path of forgiveness regardless of what someone else's actions are or not.
That's really fascinating. You should bring that up. I've attended a few spirit galleries myself with a very dear friend in New Jersey, who's also a professional psychic medium, and one of the things that she does frequently is called spirit galleries, and many times, the transitioned loved ones who will come through. And one of the most powerful experiences I had attending one of those galleries was when my paternal grandmother came through. And that message, very much interestingly enough, was that of forgiveness. She said, and this was coming from the LDS side, the Mormon side of my family. I keep forgetting that people out there who aren't Mormon don't necessarily know about, that Mormons refer to themselves as LDS or Latter-day Saints. So on the Mormon side of the family, there was always issues that I had with regards to just the path that I wound up taking. And I always felt like there was a disconnection that was there. Well, the message that came through from her was, you are perfect as you are. You have nothing to be ashamed of. And you are we are so proud of the man that you've become. Of course, that was just overwhelming for me. I mean, lots of tears, lots of release, hearing that it was okay for me to forgive myself and forgive what I had perceived as a betrayal of that side of the family and non-acceptance from that side of the family, when in fact just the opposite was true. That not only accepted me, that it was important for me to forgive myself.
Right.
So yes, it is so, so powerful. And I think it's especially powerful when delivered from a transitioned loved one who has that perspective, has been able to release all of those human blocks and experiences that they can then go through in the purity of that message. And it can be better received.
Right. So that is powerful. And we're getting some questions online from Sarah Rose about how that works. Is it okay if I answer them?
By all means, yes. That's why they're there.
So Sarah was asking, how does it work? And for those that have never had a session with a medium or a psychic, most mediums can do readings for people over the phone or in person, and we set the intention when the appointment gets set up. That's when sort of the invitation, the evite, goes out to your loved ones in spirit that, hey, Andy's going to be talking to Laura on this day at this time. So anyone in spirit wants to talk to Andy, come on in that day. And the medium will, tune in and make that connection to the higher realm. In order to do that, we raise our vibration and they lower theirs. That's how the connection's made. But just like with people in the physical plane, you kind of vibrate with some and you don't with others. In the spiritual realm, it's the same way. And so, for example, John Holland, who was a big name international medium right out of New Hampshire that I had studied under, one of the comments he makes in his training is, he's from a big Catholic Irish drunk family. So when he does readings for people, he connects with the Catholic Irish drunks, and he doesn't get many children. I am also from a Catholic family, have some Irish, have some French, and but I'm a mother. I for some reason, children in spirit often come through to me. The drunk uncles and whatever, they don't, not so much, for whatever reason. I don't drink much myself, and I don't know what the reason is, but just like with people, you resonate with some and you don't with others, and in the spiritual realm, it's sort of similar. So if you go to a medium, you have to, even though you set the intention, you might want someone specific to come through, you have to be open-minded to whoever comes through, and that's how the connection's made.
Cool, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that mediums have specialties of the type of person or backgrounds or energies that they connect to. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's not a hard and fast rule, but people will ask me, because people I have some frequent flyer clients, and they ask me, why does the same relatives come through every session with you, but not this one or that one? And, and I said, what, go to another medium, because other mediums might resonate better with those particular people. It's that simple, or not. Anyway.
I've actually seen John Holland live a couple times, just because if people that aren't familiar, he's from the area that Laura and I are both in Massachusetts, and John does a lot of local things in New England when he's not really traveling the world doing his big time stuff.
Right.
But, I think it was from him that I first heard that people that have crossed over due to suicide often have like a weaker presence, that they're not as strong to come in and communicate via mediums. So
interestingly, it's not just because of suicide. It actually also has to do with the person's beliefs. So when a person crosses spirit, there sometimes is a period of time that it takes them to evolve to the point that they can present in human form to a medium. For example, I did a reading for a woman once, and the person trying to talk to her, I kid you not, it was really one of the strangest readings I've ever done. I could hear this woman talking, but it looked like a flaming ball of light, like a Pac-Man, if you all remember. I know I'm dating myself by Pac-Man, but it looked like a talking ball of flame, like a Pac-Man, talking to me. I couldn't see, she didn't look human at all. I could hear a human female voice. And the woman had been in spirit for 9 months, the talking ball of light. But the woman that I was doing the reading for was the executor of her estate. And the woman who was talking, her name was Charlotte, she said, it is so important that you tell her I had it all wrong. I believe that when I died, to dust we go back to, that there was no afterlife. And I can't even come through as a human yet because I still haven't got there. But I had to tell her that the religions have it wrong. There's no heaven and hell. We keep going on, but the beliefs that you have before you pass will impact how quickly or not you can come through. So, and conversely, I did another reading for a client one day. Her grandmother passed the day before. The grandmother came through clairvoyantly, clear as a bell. So it's not only suicide cases. It's anyone, depending on what any person's belief is, could impact their ability to come back immediately or not.
That's fascinating, and that brings up something that I had remember hearing from another medium one time, which is when people cross over, depending on their belief systems, they may go through a period of discharging a lot of the stuff which they accumulated during their human experience, and depending on how attached they were to those beliefs, the discharging can take place immediately, or it can take a long time to let go of that.
So there's a fascinating book that explains some of the process that we go through in the afterlife. It's called The Afterlife of Billy Fingers, and it is a great book that describes when we go to spirit, what happens. And you're calling it discharging. I never really thought of it as discharging, but I guess I think of it the continued evolution that we go through when we go to spirit. And there is certainly a period of time in the book, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers, it's described as initially we go to a healing chamber, and then from there we go to another dimension or vibration or place. Think of it how you will.
Mm-hmm.
Where you do your review of your life and you process some of your decisions, mistakes, experiences, and that's maybe what you're calling discharging.
Mm-hmm.
But this book, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers, it was written by Annie Kagan, who was a chiropractor in New York City, who was not a medium per se at all. She had sold her practice in New York City, had moved out to Long Island, and her older brother was tragically hit by a drunk driver in Miami and killed instantly. And a couple months after he passed, she's walking on the beach and he started talking to her, telling her what the afterlife was like. So the book is, a lot of mediums recommend this book because it really aligns with what we have heard from our connections to people in spirit. It really aligns pretty closely with it. So it's a very, very interesting read, and explains that really well.
That's interesting. You should bring up walking along the beach and getting a communication walking along the beach. My other grandmother, my mom's mom, came through to me when I was walking with a friend of mine on the beach in St. Augustine, Florida, funny enough. That was a 2.5 hour conversation. Very fascinating.
Well, so the beach is a place, I know this has nothing to do with forgiveness, but it really is a really interesting fun fact. When you're at the beach, you're a very clear channel. Something about the ocean, the salt water. I personally believe we are all mediums, and the ones that sort of do this work professionally spend a lot of time and energy trying to purify ourselves as channels. But we're all mediums, and when you're at the ocean, clearing, it's an incredibly clearing experience. So many people have clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient experiences with their loved ones when they're at the beach. So it's kind of cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And Sarah had another question earlier. I don't want to lose it. Do you find that masculine energies in the physical world and also in spirit are different from feminine energies?
Well, yes. Yes, in the sense that when I'm doing readings for clients and their loved ones come through, they often come through how they were in the physical realm, because it's evidential for the person to think of them that way. However, I also know that, as our soul evolves, because someone had a physical experience as a male, when they go to spirit, they might choose to come back next time as a female or some other gender. But it's not that once a male, always a male. And but the personality traits that are connected with us in our physical realm, when we go to spirit and we're trying to communicate with our loved ones, they will use that information because it's evidential. And I'll just give you 2 quick examples because they were really kind of funny and interesting. So I was doing a group event at someone's house, and the wife said, well, you're going to do a reading for my husband. I'm making him have a reading. He needs to hear from someone. And it wasn't the first time I had a sort of a recalcitrant male sitting across from me like this. I believe in this stuff,
Oh, we don't do that at all, nah.
I've had a few clients like that, though. It's pretty hilarious. Their wife or girlfriend, someone makes them go for a reading, and they come unwillingly. But anyway, and that was the case with this guy. So he's sitting across from me, and I said, well, it's okay that you don't believe. It still works the same way. So his father comes through. His father was Canadian French, and frankly, that's my heritage too, so I recognize it. But his English wasn't very good, and he was incredibly short on patience. So he's coming through to get a message to his son. So I described what he physically looked like to the son, and then as he was talking, I was just having such a challenging time understanding him. And the more agitated he became, when he reached the point that he started cursing at me, I just looked at the client and I said, listen, I would not take this treatment from someone who's alive, and I'm certainly not going to take it from your deceased father. So I'm going to stop the reading now. Sorry, I can't get a message from your dad, but go to another medium. I even recommended other names, and I just stopped the reading. Now, this was kind of early on in my work as a professional medium. I've since learned from our friend John Holland, we were just talking about the last time I took his advanced training, what I should have done is used all that information as evidential information for the man, and then go back to the gentleman in spirit and say, okay, now communicate to me from your higher self, which I will be able to understand, drop the cursing and all of that sort of personality, which was very evidential, and give me the message. I shouldn't have basically ditched on the reading the way I did. I learned after. That's what you got to be paying for. But at the time, at the end of the night, the wife comes up to me and she said, look, I just want to tell you, while my husband is so sad he didn't get a message from his father, you nailed my father-in-law. He hated women and he treated all women that way. And so my husband knows without a doubt that was his father coming through because you nailed it. So the irony of the situation, he didn't exactly get a message, but he definitely got proof of afterlife. And
well, he did get a message that his father hadn't changed much, right?
Right.
Because I've done readings for other people. I did a reading for a woman whose grandmother was Japanese, never spoke a word of English in her life. And in the reading, she communicated with me beautifully in English. And except at the end of the reading, when we got to this part where she was trying to give me a message for the young woman's parents, and there wasn't an English word that the Japanese word translated to. So she gave me the 2 English words it was between. She said, tell your parents, and then she said it's between love and honor, but it's like a family endearment. Anyways, the young woman knew exactly the word I was talking about based on how the grandmother described it. And yet here she spoke Japanese, not a word of English, and she had evolved to the point that she could communicate with me that way.
So that was actually my experience that I had with my grandmother. When she only spoke Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
But with my mom's mom, she only spoke Portuguese, but she communicated very, very clearly. And every once in a while would say a Portuguese word that I would recognize.
Right.
That was a word that we would only use between the two of us. That was, and it was fascinating. And the person who was doing the medium, who was translating, I call it spiritual translating, that energy. She spoke enough Spanish that she could actually approximate those Portuguese words, which is really, really fascinating. But you brought something up that, for me, brought up another question, and that is, in your experience, particularly dealing with male energies, those have transitioned, and as you mentioned the evidential, what the evidential energy that's there that identifies them as having been male in this particular life. How frequently do they move into those messages of forgiveness? I see it's quite frequent with female energies who have transitioned. But how often do you encounter that with male transition?
Yeah, it's pretty frequent with men as well. I just did a reading a couple months ago. A woman's father was incredibly abusive, and a lot of dads have come through asking for forgiveness, talking about how they sort of bought into, it sounds like a lame excuse, but bought into the cultural norms at the time, weren't very expressive. I mean, I think your program's awesome, talking to men about, hey, it's okay to feel, because a lot of men come back from the other side and tell me that as a medium, to tell their daughters and sons, I'm sorry, I should have hugged you, I should have said I loved you, I shouldn't have been so hard. And interestingly enough, every generation born is more connected to the higher realm than the previous generation. So honestly, these grandfathers and fathers through, you know, they legitimately, you know, weren't, I call it frequencies. And I know, Sarah, you've, someone's asked about it, about vibrations or frequencies. The frequency that we vibrate at makes a difference in terms of how connected we are, how perceptive we are to being tuned into the higher realm. And so fathers and grandparents that weren't, they do come through in readings asking for forgiveness, and moms do too. I mean, frankly, it's not just men. It's not a problem with men exclusively. There's a lot of women that come through asking for forgiveness as well. But yeah, it's powerful when the forgiveness is asked for by loved ones in the higher realm in a very evidential way. It's very powerful for the person, but also I just think it's so important that we, even if our loved ones or people who have, you know, done things to us, never ask us for forgiveness, that we forgive anyways. So.
Yeah, because forgiveness, even if you're forgiving someone else, it's really a gift to yourself.
It is. It really is. It's very powerful.
Do most people that receive that message, are they able to forgive, or? You know,
yeah, I think so. You mean who receive the message from someone in spirit, or just people who? Yes. So people who receive the message from someone in spirit, many tears have been shed, and you know, it's beautiful. I mean, I feel humbled to witness such healing, because it is healing. But there's also those people who I've done readings for, who were hoping someone would come through asking for forgiveness, and they didn't for whatever reason, and the person's left wondering, do they not care, or you know, they're wondering how to handle that, and that's why, you know, that's why the topic of forgiveness is
forgive them anyway, even if they didn't show up and ask for it.
Right. If they didn't show up and ask for it, right. And in my early 20s, I was in a very violent, abusive marriage, and did a lot of work on forgiveness in my 20s, because, you know, I had a choice. I could, you know, I think of when you're angry at someone or carrying a hurt like that. Years ago in my childhood, I read one of those Dear Abby columns where it's like carrying a sack of potatoes on your back when you're angry and hurt. And over time, the potatoes spoil and smell foul. But it doesn't hurt the person who was the one that caused that anger or hurt at all. It just hurts us, you know, when we are carrying that disgusting pack of potatoes around like in a backpack on our back. It's just hurting us. So
yeah, another analogy that I've heard is, you know, it's like taking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right, exactly.
Let's see here what Sarah has something.
Sarah has a good.
Okay, so the question, well, if you're watching the replay, you're going to see it in the chat, but for everybody, we'll just read it for you. In your experience, what is the most common topics that do men want to address with those on the other side?
So interestingly, so first, I guess I should qualify this by saying probably about 98% of my clients do happen to be women.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, and I assumed that to be the case, but yeah, great.
Men who I have done readings for, and there's been a fair amount of them through the years. I've been doing this now for almost 15 years. So they sort of fall in two camps. The camp I just told you about, the ones that come, you know, I'm here because someone made me. And it's really cool to see those people end up, you know, receiving messages and end up making a connection and kind of walking away going, wow, there's something to this. but then in the other sort of group of male clients I have, this is a popular, it is becoming one of my most popular services lately, and that is men who are coming to me for spiritual development sessions. They come in for a reading first and connect with their loved ones, and that's all really cool. And then they say, hey, I've been really feeling like I'm at a point in my life where I want to work on this. I feel the presence of my grandmother around, or this person or that person. What can I do to increase my own frequency? Or how can I be more deliberate about it? Or a really popular request is, how can I release everyone else's energy? Because, people who are sensitive to energy and then go into very public places like malls or airports or stadiums or wherever where there's a lot of other people, if you're the type of person who's sensitive to energy, and then you go into the energy cesspool that is like a mall or an airport, somewhere like that, you get what I call slime by the vibe. And so, you have to learn how to clear that away. So, so men are coming to me for spiritual development sessions after having readings, which is really cool, which is very cool. They're embracing the softer side.
Yeah. So they feel the slime, but they're not sure what it is or where it came from or why it's happening.
Right.
You're kind of a spiritual car wash.
Spiritual car wash, right. And actually on my website for free, you can download a rainbow shower meditation to help you do a little clear while you're clearing your physical body. You can do a energy clear and visualize golden light, giving yourself the car wash, as you say.
Right. All right. Well, good plug. So what is your website?
Oh, so my website, surprise, is called lauraemerald.com. And so you can just download the free MP3 file. And if you have trouble getting it, some people with Macs and some people have been having trouble getting it. If you do, just email me and I'll get it to you.
Cool.
Added it to the comments also as well, that people can refer back to it if they need to.
Beautiful. So men are rarer on the human client side. What about on the spirit side? Is that more men, more women, anything in between, or how does that break down?
Gosh, it's probably 50-50 actually on the spirit side. It's probably about even. Men, fathers, grandfathers, children, friends come through. Male, it's about even. I have not noticed a difference one way or the other. Every client's different, and depending on who they've lost and depending on how long ago, as we already talked about a little bit. And also, I would actually say maybe even a few more men in spirit do come through. And here's why. So what a medium does is we tune into the strongest, most dominant energy first. And as an example, I'll just give you one other example. So I was doing an event at a local VFW, a local hall where there was about 75 people. And the event was for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But that Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm making pancakes for my kids. And I turn and there's someone's grandmother's in my kitchen and it wasn't mine. And I looked at this woman, I said, excuse me. She was coming through in spirit. And I'm like, and it wasn't your grandmother either, Andy. I'm like,
got a grandmother thing going on.
It was a grandmother thing. I'm like, excuse me, I don't know you, but I'm doing an event later today. And if you're here early for that doesn't start till 4. And she's like, dear, I know it doesn't start till then, but I wanted to get your attention now because at those events, all the mediums tune into the strongest energy first. And I know it's not going to be me, but I thought if I showed you my face now, you'd look for me later so I could get a message to my granddaughter. It was so crazy. And so I said, okay, come back at the event and I'll tune into you and look for you. So the event starts. And really, especially in big group events like that, the men are definitely by far the stronger energies coming through. So more males in spirit come through than women. But I was able to scan the room and I saw a bunch of men in spirit, but I scanned the room and I saw the grandmother standing over against the wall right behind a young woman. And I started with her and the girl, she just started bawling. It was so appreciated. But the grandmother went really far out of her way to become the most, to tell me to look for her, because I would have absolutely tuned into some of these other spirits that were coming through with a, for lack of a better way to put it, a more dominant personality. Because as the medium, you want to get the clear connection with the person. You don't want to be fuzzy about it. So, and a lot of people who've just had a life as a male still carry a lot of that strong, personality into the afterlife, I guess, and can come through.
And if men, especially of prior generations, weren't willing to feel and be emotional, express themselves, there's almost like this pent up demand energetically afterwards. So are they like they're working harder, they're trying to get your attention, like, I got to get rid of this now?
There is definitely some of that. And actually, my very first experience when I was 35 and I had my, without a doubt, holy cow, someone on the other side's talking to me, it was the father of my brother-in-law, who was an ex-Marine. He was like 6'4", big, huge guy, gruff voice, and did not believe in the afterlife at all. But it was him whose voice I heard talking to me, and I was really taken aback. And he and others like that, who, while they were alive, really thought afterlife, they poo-pooed it. They have become, it's like a reformed smoker, how they, hate the smell of smoke and are always talking about it. But these people come from the other side, go way far out of their way to convince everyone else. It's like they're evangelizing for the spiritual realm, because while they were alive, they didn't believe in it. So they look at it as a new pastime, I guess, or something. I don't know. I call them freaking flyers, though.
I like that. You mentioned something earlier about those cultural influences, and oftentimes people will say, they apologize because of the times in which they lived. That certainly happened to me with when my grandmother came through, who went the Portuguese side. That's exactly what happened. She's like apologizing for several things that happened and asking for that forgiveness because of those cultural influences. Would you say that because women in past times, particularly if they weren't necessarily in American culture, but even in American culture, their energies perhaps aren't as strong in those group events because of those cultural influences that could still play dynamic?
I don't think it's, so here's where it gets a little strange.
Okay.
So I'm going to take you to probably a really strange concept, but it's one I've come to believe from my 15 years of studying this metaphysical stuff. I think from a soul perspective, our soul is neither male or female, but it's sort of like, I guess I think of it sort of as a super soul. And I think we can have multiple human experiences, both male, female, transgender, whatever, simultaneously, perhaps. Time as we know it in our dimension isn't apparently the way it really is in the afterlife. Time is not as linear as we perceive it to be. And so I think in the way you're asking that question is, I think when people's loved ones come through, dominant or not, extroverted or introverted, talkative or shy, all of these things, those are simply character traits in that last life that for the client that I'm doing the reading for will be evidential to prove that it's their loved one. However, the soul of that loved one is continuing to go on and evolve, and I'm sure it has the capability of being, more dominant, more forthcoming, more evolved, or what have you.
Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense to me because, I channel source energy, the full thing. And that is a consistent theme that comes through whenever I'm channeling, is that we are neither male nor female when we are in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
We just are.
We're love.
Exactly.
Right.
We are love, and the whole multiplicity of experiences simultaneously also makes sense because I get that a lot as well. So, okay, yeah, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it's kind of a mind bender, but
yeah.
All the good stuff is, right?
For sure.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about mediumship, and probably should have started this way, but how would you define the difference from what's a psychic versus a medium?
So the difference between psychic and mediumship, the word psychic comes from the Greek word of the soul, and psychic senses, to be able to see, hear, feel people in spirit. When you're developing your psychic senses. You're strengthening your connection with your own spirit guides. And spirit guides is a concept that, depending on your religious tradition, you may or may not even believe in necessarily. Again, it doesn't matter if you believe in them or not, they still are there. But when you go to someone for a psychic reading, what's happening is the psychic is connecting with their spirit guides who are talking to your guides and talking to you. So it's a little bit like that old commercial, remember? We'll go to lunch. We'll have my girl call your girl. We'll go to lunch. You know, it's an indirect communication. It's through the guides. So when a psychic appears to be reading your mind, it's really your guides are communicating to the psychic's guides, who is downloading whatever information, giving it back. Medium is also psychic, as we all are. We all are born with some level of psychic and mediumship ability. Are we all a Mozart? Well, maybe not necessarily, but we all could learn to play the piano if we chose to. And we could all strengthen these, particular skills if we wanted to. But a medium has taken that one step further. So when I do a mediumship reading for someone and I'm sitting across from the client, I am directly communicating, not through the guides, although my guides are helping me. I'm directly seeing or feeling or hearing their loved ones in spirit. So all mediums have developed their psychic abilities, but not all psychics trust or have developed their mediumship skills to the point that they're willing to share information that way. And that's why it's more expensive for a mediumship reading. It's a heck of a lot more expensive. You could go somewhere and get a psychic, card reading. There are psychic tools that psychics use, palm reading, tarot cards, and all these other things. You can pay $30 and go get that kind of a reading. It takes a lot of physical energy for the medium to be making that direct communication with the higher realm. And that's why it's a lot more expensive. So
cool. Thanks for that. I've heard both terms bandied about often, and I never took the time to ask someone, well, what, especially someone that identifies as them, like, well, what's the difference to you?
Right.
Yeah, because I've often heard, and I've told you, we're all psychic. It's just, are we strengthening it? Are we using it? Are we believing it? Or are we denying it? And not until we cross over to go, oh yeah, I was psychic. Jeez.
I love that definition. I mean, it's such a beautiful definition. And I like how you define psychic as not as mind reading, but that connection to soul, that connection that we all have. I usually like to say that we are all empathic because we can all feel emotions to a certain extent of others. It's how we're able to create relationships. It's how we're able to build trust with one another and so forth. There is that connection. We all sense it, even if we don't necessarily call it that. But I like your definition even better as far as that psychic ability.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
Cool. Well, we've been going on for quite a bit, and as I look at the clock, and not even sure when we started due to our rough start initially.
It's almost 45 minutes ago.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
so Laura, I want to thank you for sticking with it and joining us. This has been really fascinating.
You are very welcome.
Right. And thanks for all the people sharing the comments and questions today. Really a good active group. Join us next week, next Tuesday. Wow, it's already July. It'll be July 5th. We'll have another episode of Real Men Feel. We'll be joined by Psycho. Wow. A bird just flew into my window.
I heard that thump, too.
That was the bird, yeah.
Wow.
There are feathers. Wow. I gotta see if someone's all right. Okay. Bird trying to get out of the show. Next week, we're going to be joined by psychotherapist Luke Watley, and we're going to explore allowing life to guide you. So that should be really interesting as well.
I'm looking forward to that conversation. Cool. Well, I look forward to all of our conversations.
Yeah, how dare you? What do you think?
Really?
So again, thanks, Appio. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Laura. And more information, visit realmenfeel.org, visit lauraemerald.com, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, everyone on the line. Nice meeting you all. Take care.
Start recording again. We have a forgiveness poem. We're back.
Sorry. This was written by the former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Robert Mueller, for International Forgiveness Week, which is apparently a real thing in February. And it's called Decide to Forgive. Decide to forgive, for resentment is negative, resentment is poisonous, resentment diminishes and devours the self. Be the first to forgive, to smile, and to take the first step, and you will see happiness bloom on the face of your human brother or sister. Be always the first. Do not wait for others to forgive. For by forgiving, you become the master of fate, the fashioner of life, the doer of miracles. To forgive is the highest, most beautiful form of love. In return, you will receive untold peace and happiness. Here is the program for achieving a truly forgiving heart. Sunday, forgive yourself. Monday, forgive your family. Tuesday, forgive your friends and associates. Wednesday, forgive across economic lines within your own nation. Thursday, forgive across cultural lines within your own nation. Friday, forgive across political lines within your own nation. And Saturday, forgive other nations. Only the brave know how to forgive. A coward never forgives. It is not in his nature. By Robert Mueller.
Very cool.
Beautiful.
So,
Absolutely beautiful.
I think it just covers it all, doesn't it? You know, and especially in these political times, isn't that a good reminder?
Yeah, and especially the daily prescription. I like that even better.
I know. So anyway, so I just thought that'd be a good note to end on. But
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks.
That's great.
Thanks for spreading that.
yeah.
Goodbye again.
Yeah.
All right,
See you guys later.
So Andy,